Welcome back to the Indiewood Podcast, a podcast about independent film and the many hats independent filmmakers have to wear in order to get those films made. With me this month, I have a wonderful new guest who is an old friend, not an old friend, I think a longtime friend, who has been with us, me specifically as a creative on a lot of projects, who's been on stage, on TV, and on film, and has had a lot of unique parts to his journey as a creative, as a filmmaker, as an actor. And I'm excited to have Wayne T. Carr, with 2 R's, on the pod today. Wayne, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, of course. This series is a bit different because we don't have mics that we're holding.
Yeah.
Usually we'll have like a microphone in the hand, and now we just have these little clip-on ones. We did get little fidget things to kind of hold in the hand. So
are you going to use that?
Yeah, I'm going to use it as a microphone and talk into it. So Wayne, you are an actor. You have been an actor solely for the majority of your career.
Yes.
You're not really a multi-hyphenate, but as you've kind of come to this point in your career, you're exploring these other opportunities where you're taking more charge of the things that you are in.
Yeah.
So you are kind of doing a lot of stuff in regards to writing, and I think you're also kind of exploring, being the driving force behind a project. But we'll get to a lot of that, I think, later in the series.
Before you continue, what define multi-hyphenate?
Somebody that does something, how would you define multi-hyphenate? I'm sure there's a definition out there. But for me, for example, I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I'm also a director.
Yes.
I'm also a cinematographer. I'm also an editor. So like the hyphen continues. Yeah.
So I would say that I am.
You are.
In a couple of ways. I mean, most people probably wouldn't include being a father as one. But
That's true.
It is a job, right?
It is.
It's a big time job. And I got my undergraduate degree in directing for theater.
Oh, shit.
So
okay.
I do that occasionally, primarily on the college level. So I'll get paid to go into colleges. And then acting has been my primary thing, but I'm also a coach, a facilitator. So I'm a multi-hyphenate, just not necessarily.
So let me rephrase.
Yes.
Actor, director, and father.
There you go.
There you go.
I'll
You are multi-hyphenate.
Thanks.
But you are also exploring other other hyphenates. There we go. Other hyphenates to kind of expand your career. But I'd love to talk to you and have you share your life, because you've had a lot of ups and downs in your career, a lot of amazing ups. And I'd love to talk about those as well, and just to kind of have people understand your perspective, because I'd love to get your perspective on the industry. Tell me about Wayne and how theater was kind of the main thing you chose to do, and how then that transition happened to TV and to film and to writing.
Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how long you want these episodes to be.
We'll condense it.
Yeah.
Cliff notes.
I mean, I started, my senior year of high school was the first time I did a play. And I did that play at Rockville High School, where it was pretty diverse. But for whatever reason, the theater department wasn't diverse. So they were doing a play called To Kill a Mockingbird. And they had no one who looked like myself, who was a Black American, to audition for a very pivotal role. Okay. So they came out to my football practice on the field. We were done with football practice.
You were playing football?
Well, yes, absolutely, through college. And they said Wayne would do it, because I tried to dabble in everything. So I did that play, and I remember the director saying to me, if you want to do this as a career, you might be able to do this, because I think you have talent. And I'm like, what? Okay, whatever. I got to college as a biology major. I went to college as a football major. Okay. And I say major because that was what I wanted to do. Yeah. It was like football and biology.
Interesting.
And theater kind of was a hobby.
Your life feels like an episode of Glee, or like the series Glee, where you're like, I'm in football, and then like you have talent elsewhere as a creative.
That's a good comparison.
Okay.
Yeah. I have so many stories. I was also in a boy band for a little bit, but we'll talk about that if you want to.
There's so much about Wayne that I don't know.
I got stories.
We've talked quite a bit too, and okay. All right. No.
The only reason I bring that up is because, one, I like you, and two,
well, now you're telling
everybody
absolutely.
to let people know that there's always these crazy forks in the road
Yeah.
sometimes, right? And if you talk to anyone enough, on the street, wherever you are, and you say, hey, if where could your life have gone? Like if this had happened, or if you moved to a different neighborhood, if you had a different mentor, if you had, whatever.
I could have been a ballet dancer.
Of course you could.
Yeah. Well, not like
Of
I was
course.
studying to be a ballet dancer,
Right.
and then I was given the choice to like not do it.
Yeah.
And I was a 7-year-old boy, and I wanted to play in the dirt. So I was like, no, let me play in the dirt. And it's a regret I have, because I think it would have been an interesting path, an interesting kind of thing to do as a creative.
Yeah.
But maybe regret's the wrong word. I don't regret the choice, but I
Well,
sometimes
you're
think
curious.
fondly
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
And
yeah.
as you should.
Yeah.
I could have been a doctor. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to.
You could have been in the NFL.
I could have been in the NFL, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And that was also something that I wanted to do. So my two first passions, I stopped at a young age.
See, now you got to get be in a movie about football.
Yes, and maybe a football doctor.
Exactly,
Or
football
a doctor
doctor.
who becomes a football player, or a football player who becomes a doctor.
They should do a movie like that, like Doogie Howser, but he plays football and he's also like working in the hospital.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, so continue. Football, biology major, but you were still pursuing acting.
Acting didn't happen on a professional focused level until my senior year of college. I was playing in the homecoming game at Frostburg State University. Shout out to Frostburg. I broke my back. This big guy falls with his knees, lands on my back, so I broke my lumbar 3. And I remember being extremely depressed because instantly my football career was done, right? I was at a Division III school, so it was highly unlikely, but I was going to go for it at least.
You're going to try,
right? I was going to try. And there was a teacher there, Mersey Yost is her name. She said, Wayne, I think you have talent as an actor. So he's the second person who told me this. I was doing it for fun. By this time, my senior year of college, I was double majoring in mass communications and theater with a directing focus in both.
Okay.
My I don't know what to call it, but my rational brain, there was a part of me that was like, I want a job.
Yeah.
I love art. I love football, but I want a job. And so going into my senior year, I thought I can be a technical director for a sports channel or something, or a TV network maybe. And so that's what I was shooting for. And in my senior year, once I broke my back, I had to drop one of my majors. So I dropped mass communications. This wonderful woman, Mersey Yost, said, you know what? You should go to grad school. And I said, for what? She said, acting. And I said, I can't pay for that. She was like, well, you can get a scholarship. And I was like, yeah, right. And so this beautiful woman coached me for 2 weeks for like a full-time job for 2 weeks on how to do a monologue, how to do an interview for grad schools. I went to New York, auditioned for a bunch of schools at a thing called URDAS, but I don't even know if that's still around. But I auditioned for a bunch of grad schools. I got into a couple. Penn State was what I chose, went there, and that's when I started to focus on acting.
That is such an inspirational story, because you went from this whole life, and then recently now you just got back home 2 days ago from American Repertory Theater in Boston, where you played Odysseus.
In Cambridge.
Cambridge,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
where I played Odysseus, yes.
Yeah. I said Boston, right? I can't.
Yeah, everybody says Boston.
Yeah,
I say
yeah.
Boston too, but I just want to
Cambridge,
give like
And-
ART a shout out. They're moving next year to Boston.
Okay.
It's right
So,
across the river.
I'm from
So
the
it's
future, actually, so I'm
like,
confused.
yeah, exactly.
But that is such a well-lived life, and I think that gives you so much more, presence in the things that you do. But I mean, after Penn State, so how? Tell me more. Keep going. Because I'm learning a lot. I usually ask more questions, but I'm like, yes, no, this is a movie.
Yeah, no, when we were chatting the other day, I was thinking, oh, this is something I might want to share, or this is something I might want to share. And I was thinking, like, I think the core of all of it is one, curiosity. That's something that I was kind of like born with. I'm just a curious person, and that's good and bad. So it helps me when I'm pursuing something, but it also distracts me at the same time. So I may want to do this over here, but then this thing will come up and it will be awesome. And I'll go, oh, that's kind of cool. And I've completely lost this thing. So controlled curiosity is something that we can chat about because it's something that I want to journal on myself.
I like that.
And then, and at the same time, having a plan, being okay with adjusting with that plan. But I think a lot of people like myself who went into acting or theater or whatever it is, who want to go that path, have a very streamlined thought of what it is. And they don't know where they can go. So you have to be somewhat flexible, but create a plan. And the thing is that nobody can tell you what that plan is.
Yeah. Did you have that mentality when you were starting?
No.
So you were just kind of like, let's see what happens.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's exactly what happened. Let's see what happened.
Yeah.
I went where the wind blew me.
Where did the wind blow you?
Oh my gosh. We talked for so long.
When we met, you were doing a lot of regional theater.
Yes.
In kind of the Western United States.
All over.
All over. Okay. I think when we met, you were just coming out of Utah.
Yes. Yeah.
And then my wife at the time, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was, and I keep bringing this up because I feel like it's such a big part of my life now.
Yeah.
We did a web series, and then you were part of it. You were part of it just as a previous guest. JJ Hawkins was a part of it, and that's how we met. And you were a really amazing part of that show because you brought a gravitas to the show. Yeah. Even though we wrote you as like a comedic character, I think it was there was a presence that was really nice. But then from there, you went on to do TV and film. So how did the transition from this kind of career in theater happen to film and television? Is that something you wanted to do, or is that something where like the wind was like, hey, you're going here now?
Yeah, no. When I got out of grad school, I don't know how far back I want to go with this, because basically what happened is when I got out of grad school, television was what it was. And this was before the amount of streaming services that are you know what I mean? So there wasn't a lot of television, and the television that I did like was HBO, you know, when it was HBO.
Yeah, you didn't have like a walk-on role for, you know, The Sopranos.
Yeah, you know, like I just want it to be like a hardcore actor, right? So that was on the stage where you didn't have the ability to cut and you just had to keep going. And if you had a slip up, like in life, you just keep going. And I love that. And so I was like, I'm just going to do theater. No money's really in it. Like it doesn't pay extremely well, but that's what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I spent 1 year where all I did was regional theater. That's how I survived. And then at the end of the year, I calculated, doing my taxes, how much I made. And I thought, this is not sustainable. I have to do something else. Nobody was able to tell me that. I had to figure it out. I realized, oh my gosh, I literally have sometimes overlapping shows where I was getting double paychecks. And at the end of it, I had no money. I had nothing to show for it. And so from that moment on, I started to think, oh, well, I have to branch out and start to do other things. What would those other things be? So, but when I first started, all I wanted to do was theater. So that's what I did.
A question, because you know, for actors listening, for people that want to be playwrights, for people that want to direct in regional theater, because that's predominantly a lot of what the shows are in America is regional stuff, and you have some of the big theaters in you know, like New York and LA and Chicago, but for the most part, a lot of the meat of theater happens in these regional spaces, and they can be really good.
Absolutely.
How, I guess not how do you survive, but like, is it for the love of the craft, or is there some, like, for example, people say, oh, the best training you can get for TV is be on a soap opera, because you're doing it every day. You know, you jump in, you do an episode, every day is an episode, you know, it's Broadway.
That to me is a genre in its own.
Yeah.
That might help you learn your lines faster or something like that, but the people who do soap operas, their job is so much more intense than my last television job, which was on Chicago Med. I did like 7 episodes on Chicago Med. And it's one thing if you are a lead in it, and you're doing 22 episodes, and you're going from, I don't know, October till May and shooting, and then with a little break in between. It's like, okay, maybe a soap opera can help you, you know, be more with it on the lines, but it's a completely different energy. It's a completely different flow. Soap operas are pumping out so much more than, a Chicago Med, right?
Yeah.
So it's completely different. And then you have the mini series. That's a completely different thing.
It's strange to think about how, like, is Chicago Med still doing 24 episodes? Or are they cut down?
I don't even know if they're still going.
Well, just like that, the Chicago series, are they still doing 24 episodes a season?
22, 24,
yeah, that's like the old TV model.
It is.
Because now it's like you're lucky if you get 10.
Yep.
And it's crazy to think that, soap operas do more than like the big standard, 90s kind of TV model that a lot of shows used to have, which is a bummer that we missed that. We don't have that anymore, because that's how you trained writers.
Yeah.
You have your showrunner, and then you bring on, emerging writers or writers that are still kind of, figuring out their chops. And then they would do, 24 episodes a season.
Mm-hmm.
And then that trained them to be better and be showrunners down the line, or just be better creatives. And now we don't have that anymore, which sucks.
It does.
But I think Chicago Fire and Med and PD, what else is there?
Med, PD, and Fire,
Yeah, I think Dick Wolf is still the guy who's kind of, keeping the TV industry afloat on some level. Yeah. Well, my kind of coming back to my question about regional theater, like, why do regional theater if there's no money in it?
It's of course a passion, right?
Yeah.
It's something you have to love. And then, I remember seeing an interview and actually talking to Denzel Washington, who is a hero of mine, right?
And you were with him on Macbeth.
Yeah, the tragedy of Macbeth.
Cohen,
the Joel Cohen.
Was it both Cohen brothers?
No, just Joel.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you had a small part in that, and you were also the
Shakespeare consultant.
There we go. Yeah,
was the title that we came up with. Yeah,
which was, I think, necessary. Sarah and I were talking about you the other day and how you gave her some tips on Shakespeare, and we were talking about how good of a teacher you are, because when I hear you kind of talk in from an education perspective, it's always like so clear and so succinct, and also very like knowledgeable in depth. And she was like, that man knows so much about Shakespeare. And then you got hired to consult for Joel Cohen in Macbeth.
Yeah, which was great.
Can you, before we dive in, could you give the non-theater nerds the breakdown on why you don't say, is it Macbeth or Hamlet? You don't say
Macbeth.
You don't say Macbeth. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
what's the story behind that?
So there's superstition behind that, and when you're in a theater, specifically a theater, you don't say Macbeth if you're not working on it. A lot of people have superstition about that, and for different reasons, but there have been many situations, documented situations, where somebody says it in a theater and somebody gets hurt or something happens. So there's so much, it's a big old history, right? Like with that. And even if you're doing the play, it's like, okay, it's a little
so
cursed.
What do actors call the play?
The Scottish play.
And what else is there?
The Scottish play is or Mackers.
That's like the Mackers,
yeah. Scottish play or Mackers, but the Scottish play, the theater nerds of the world call it the Scottish play or Mackers actually.
Yeah.
But
I heard also McBee.
McBee is a good one to do. No,
Interesting you mentioned interesting that we kind of talk about this, because it also happens in other forms of performance. Ballet, you say break a leg. I think it's in theater you say break a leg as well. Yeah. In music circles, you don't play Requiem, Mozart's Requiem, because maybe you do, but I forget because my stepdad was a musician, and he did that a couple times, that show, and he was played for a big orchestra, and they were like, every time we've played that, something bad happens. Someone's family member passes away, something. There's a tragedy.
I was part of a choir that sang
interesting.
That.
Did you experience any?
No.
Okay.
Well, actually, let me think about that. I'm like, was that the year I broke my back? I don't know, but it was in college. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It was great.
Because it brings with it such gravitas, because it's the thing he wrote as he was dying. There's some energy in that. So we've digressed way too far.
It's going to happen when we talk.
It is. Yeah. We need more than half an hour. So. I asked you the question about regional theater. I promise
Yeah.
we'll get to the answer. And I said, like, why do regional theater if there's no money in it?
Yeah. Why? Yes. Why do anything if there's no money in it, right?
Yeah.
Why do anything? And it's just it's a meditation. It's a practice. It's a love for something, right? And so if you have that love and you have the ability to do the thing you love, well, just go ahead and do it. Most of the people that I know who are in theater, who are in their middle age range, who've been doing it for a long time, it's not about the money. It's for the love of the craft, right? And they all think of it as a blessing. It's a blessing that they get to do that. Some of them are, stock traders, some of them
Yeah.
are teachers, some of them do whatever. And most of them will probably tell you if they sat on this couch with you, you know what, I would do this for free. So the fact that they give me a check is awesome.
It's just
it's
a bonus. Yeah. I'm glad we unpacked that because I feel like that scope, that environment of theater is very similar to indie film. You don't make an indie film to make money.
You definitely don't.
You make an indie film to tell the story, to shoot the shot, to, have whatever's in here visually. I'm pointing to my head for those listening, not watching the pod. What's happening in your head, in your imagination, to get that out onto like a visual medium.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's why I do it. Like I wake up and I have these images in my head. I'm like, I need these things out of my head.
Yeah. Don't go to the grave with it in your head. It's awful. And even if you can't, and this is what I would say, if you were my student, I would say, even if you can't film it, write it. Even if you can't write it, speak it. You know what I mean? Just put it out there because it's helpful for you. If you don't allow yourself to get it out there, then you hold on to it. And I think it blocks you from future possibilities.
There's been a couple of moments like that where I have a hard time moving on to a different project because I wake up and I keep thinking about this scene in this film that is half written or I wrote and needs a rewrite. And I'm like, this project needs to be out in the world.
Yeah.
Because it can't live inside me.
Actually, I mean, I was listening to the episode with JJ and he said something similar, I think. And I was like, yeah, spot on. So yeah, I'm kind of repeating what he was talking about.
But after regional theater, you did TV.
Yes.
You did film. You did a lot of amazing film projects. You were in Macbeth.
Yes.
You also you shot a scene for oh my God, I wouldn't even call this. The reshoots that...
Oh, the Zack Snyder reshoot?
Yeah, the Zack Snyder did for Justice League.
Yes.
And you were cast as Green Lantern.
Yes, yeah. And I wouldn't say that I was necessarily cast as it
because you were shot performing the role of Green Lantern.
Well, yeah. Like it was in the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. HBO was becoming HBO Max. Mm-hmm. They needed something to kind of like help, boost their subscribers or whatever. And they were like, Zach, we want your version of, because he said, it's in the can, it's ready. I can, do it, just a couple of tweaks here and there. And so I'm good friends with Ray Fisher, who is Cyborg in the films, right? And Ray Fisher told him about me and was like, I have a friend who's a good actor who might be cool for the role. So Zach called me the summer of 2020. It was a great summer that I was on the set for the tragedy of Macbeth.
It's funny you say it's a great summer, even though we were in the throes of
I know. It was in the middle of the pandemic. Yeah. We
were shooting
some of the most exciting moments of my life during that time.
Yeah.
That my wife and I decided we're going to have a kid in the middle of the pandemic. Yeah. We were planning on it, and then we were thinking, no, we shouldn't do this. The world is crumbling. Black Lives Matter is in full effect. Yeah. Cops are shooting people that look like me. What are we thinking of bringing a kid into this world? Like it's all shut down. We're wearing masks. It's crazy. I was like, no, let's go for what we want to do.
That's the best time to make that sort of decision because you are bringing some positivity into that moment of negativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote my first pilot during that time.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think The Tragedy of Macbeth was the first film to come back into production that summer. And so they were leading the way on like how to set up the whole, testing thing, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a big deal. So Zack Snyder knew that I was being tested on a regular basis or whatever. And so I was able to send my results to him. We chatted 5 times before I went to his house and shot the scene.
So you shot it in his driveway?
In his driveway, yes. And I got the whole suit, the little with the dots, or the mocap suit, right? And which is not flattering on anyone.
No.
But I put that thing on. I drove to his place. We started to shoot. About 2 hours in, he comes up to me. He was like, "I need this in my movie."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What were we doing in the first place?"
Because the movie was the scene was supposed to go at the end.
So it was supposed to go in, and Martian Manhunter replaced the scene that I did, which was very similar to the dialogue that I had. But Zack was excited about what I did, and that was kind of just cool. And he was like, "I want this in my film." And I remember him calling me after he showed Warner Brothers, and he said, "Yeah, they're not allowing it because they have future plans, et cetera, et cetera." And I was,
with James Gunn coming in, it was all shifted. Okay,
it was shifted, but they still had Lantern plans, and they're coming out in 26 with their Lantern television show.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Which is exciting. I wish them the best of luck. But my experience with Zack during that time was great. One, that I got to meet him, who has directed some films that I love. 300 being one of them. And I was just excited. And I was excited that during the process of shooting this scene for him to help him out, because I didn't truly know what his plans were. I had no idea until he told me, "I want this in my film." And I thought, oh, and he was like, it's a long shot, because he hadn't talked to the studio yet. We were just playing around. We were just having a good time.
That's the best time or the best environment to produce something amazing. You just play.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we were doing. We were playing for 4 hours on basically a page and a half, of dialogue. And it was so much fun.
So just to wrap up, because you've had this career and you've had this perspective and you've had amazing ups and you've had, some bummers, as we've called them.
We all do.
Yeah. How are you seeing the landscape now as an actor and as a filmmaker and as someone who's been on very different sets and stages? Are you seeing creativity and the film industry and the theater industry, the theatrical industry? Survive, thrive? What's your perspective?
My perspective is, I think we all kind of have a similar thing, which is we have to adjust.
Yeah.
Champions do that, you have to just make the adjustments. And so whatever that is, we can talk about this in later episodes, but
you have to
vertical
call an audible.
Yeah, you have to call an audible, right? And so it's like, okay, how do you adjust when all of a sudden you're self-tapes? We're not going into any offices. We're not having that one-on-one, let's chat and talk. Self-tape. Casting directors don't know who I am because I can't go into their office and say, "Hey, I'm a sane person,"
and talk with them.
Yeah, I'm not crazy. Hey, I saw you, a month ago. There's none of that. They just watch our tapes or not, and move on.
Yeah, and that's been a struggle for all the actors that I know. Is that's just gone. But we have to adapt. And I think what your experience shows is that the wind of creativity takes us to some unique and amazing places.
Yes.
If you didn't say yes to everything that came to you, you wouldn't have been in Zack Snyder's front yard shooting Green Lantern. You wouldn't have been an actor. You wouldn't have been on TV or a father. So I guess with this advice, with this kind of, with the recap of your life, I think the advice would be say yes. Say yes to the dress, but not the dress, the creative project.
Say yes to the things that move you.
Yeah.
And no to the things that don't.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to do everything.
Yeah.
But that's a choice. That's a conscious choice, right?
I think I get in trouble when I say yes to too much.
Of course.
And then I'm like, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I want to do that, but I can't.
I think there's more power, more leverage, more inspiration in the ability to say no to things.
Yeah.
Say no to the things that you don't want. I say no more than I say yes, to be honest.
And on that, I think we'll wrap up and we'll talk about amazing things in episode 2 that I want to unpack with you. Wayne, thank you for coming on the pod. Thank you to everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Indiewood Podcast. You can find the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts or on the CFA YouTube channel.
From the CFA Network, Cinematography for Actors is bridging the gap through education and community building. Find out about us and listen to our other podcast at cinematographyforactors.com.
Cinematography for Actors Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit. For more information on fiscal sponsorship, donations, because we're tax exempt now, so it's a tax write-off, and upcoming education, you can email us at contact@cinematographyforactors.com. Thanks.